the den of iniquity. Vicinity no pretty, calamity fi hit we any moment. What a pity, tomorrow never certain. What draws behind the curtain? The face of evil smirking with that shifty eyes averting. It's not a steady bubble that either pop or topple. Many will fall and stumble. Let the dozers gather rubble from LA to Colorado, Guinea to Burkina Faso. Cannons could reach the towers and the troops will storm the castle. I say, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. I say, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. Lord, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. With the rubble steady rising and hearts are compromising. Convictions here are stifling, making evil appetizing. The fists are steady forming and countenance is falling. Defenses are withdrawing, possibilities are falling. In these your circumstances, evil will make advances. Pick up your sword and lances and be sure to take your stances. Victory is never promised, the battle is upon us. Gather the brave and honest and the righteous in your corners.
Hello, welcome ladies and gentlemen to another episode of Getting Ish Done with Ike and Dr. Thunder. Coming live and direct 3, that's Wednesday. I was thinking Wednesday and I'm thinking 3. Well, it is the third day of the week, right? Ain't that right? And that's 6:30 Pacific time, 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. Every Wednesdays where we come and we talk to you about productivity, getting stuff done, okay, and advancements of all kinds. How are we doing this week, Dr. Thunder?
I'm doing all right. I'm getting ish done.
Excellent. That's the spirit. That's the spirit. Let's go ahead and get something done, ladies and gentlemen. Go ahead and click that like button, click the subscribe button, and the notification bell. Okay, share the stream as well, because we're going to get into a very important topic, which is about success, financial freedom, getting rich. Okay, a word about that, which is, I was listening, for example, to somebody talk about, well, we're all investing for retirement, he says. And that just kind of hit me wrong. I'm like, what the hell does he mean, retirement? Like, well, that just sounds very arcane and lame. Like, oh, I want to do this so I can retire. But later on, he did kind of explain that retirement is that state where you can do what you want to do, right? What you want to do, right? Whatever projects or work or what initiatives or whatever it may be, it's what you want to do. And in order to get there tends to be two sides of the equation. There's the supply side of the equation, which is the money that you're bringing in. And then there's the demand side, which is what do you need? Because you could really super just downscale everything right now and live on $25,000 a year and be free and do what you want to do because, right? So we understand that. Just something I wanted to bring up since we're talking about this topic. But the topic today says how to use luck and compounding interest. And you're like, well, how are these two things related? Where's this luck thing and compounding interest coming from, right? And are they opposed to each other? So compound interest, as we know, is one of the great facts of the universe. It simply exists, okay, as a result of the physical laws of the universe make it such that compounding and exponential increase is something that exists. It exists physically, it exists also financially, and things compound, whether it's good luck or bad luck or love or reputation or whatever it may be, okay? Things build up on a foundation that was already there, and they just tend to then exponentially increase, okay? Now, in order to take advantage of compounding interest, you have to stay put. You have to kind of be around there with your eggs or whatever it is, or your business reputation. You have to be present and keep on adding to the thing, and then it compounds. Now, luck, though, does kind of need you to go around into different places. So how do you balance between, okay, I'm going to get lucky by compounding interest, right? Versus I need to leave here and go find some other stuff, right? And before we get into the topic and the podcast that we'll be reviewing today, I just wanted to ask Dr. Thunder, have you or encountered this particular dichotomy, this particular balancing act between like, okay, well, you need to do several things, and maybe you need to find certain kinds of opportunities. But you also know that in any one of these things, you kind of have to stay put for a while, insofar as it can even be in terms of human relationships, because that's a huge part of any kind of success, any type of economy, okay, is you're going to deal with other people. And when you're just a new guy in the room, no one knows you, no one trusts you, maybe people don't even like you yet, so you're not going to be getting the benefits. So you need to stay in any one of these baskets that you have your eggs in, but you can't just be stuck in one basket, right? So is that something that over your career you've kind of encountered and tried to balance and whatnot?
Absolutely. It's multiple things at the same time. One strategy to try to figure out what's going to work out for you is to have, a few irons in the fire, as it were, and then you figure out which thing is starting to sort of take off, and you maybe increase some of your time or whatever it is, some of the resources, some of the energy in that thing that's starting to take off. And that's a way to sort of maximize your results. I think I'd be pretty bored if I had to just do the same thing all the time. So I think it's pretty natural for me to have several things going on at the same time. And it might, and sometimes, I mean, if you think about it, if all you have is the one thing, then yeah, you have more time and energy that you can devote to that one thing. But if there's a lot of things that you're interested in, you can sort of play the long game, and you can just kind of wait for those things to develop over maybe a little bit longer period of time. But eventually you'll get to the place where you're able to kind of do the stuff that you want to do and maybe start letting go of other stuff. So yeah.
Okay, 100%. You're saying that put a couple irons on the fire. One starts to, blow up, if you will. Things start to happen in that area. You start to develop trust, reputation, or you develop your skills there. You're finding that you're particularly good at this thing, right? Whatever it may be. And then you start to put more time, more resources, make more connections, kind of invest, as they say, more into that area. And then, because that makes sense, right? It makes sense to do that. And you're mentioning that it's within your personality to be interested in a number of different things. So in order to just keep you interested and to keep life exciting, if you will, you kind of will be doing several things no matter what. But you're definitely understanding that you can't just be you can't just take all your eggs out of this one basket now and be like, oh no, I think it's the taxi business now, 100%. And then you take from there and then you go, and those things tend not to work. Now, there is a chance that you're just going to strike gold in one of these endeavors, but that's typically not how it happens. Let's say, for example, let's take Elon Musk, whom is an example of somebody whom is doing many things. And someone may say, well, you look at Elon Musk, he does this and he does that. And it's like, one could say that Elon Musk never actually stopped or never really left a particular area that he's in, which is, okay, I'm in Silicon Valley / technology, okay? Before PayPal, I already had a couple other startups that were successful, okay? I've been working with the same group of people, right? They're called the PayPal Mafia, by the way. You should look them up. Peter Thiel is another big time guy in amongst that group. So he's been in the same area, doing the same types of things, getting trust and building a reputation amongst that same group of people. And then one thing blows up, and then he takes that and he starts something else. And he's doing SpaceX and Tesla and all these other things. He's not all of a sudden when he started doing Tesla, he didn't just leave SpaceX alone, or whatever it may be, whichever he started first, right? He is within the same space. And even up till now, he is still in that space of, let's call it money, which is the PayPal space, right? Because he's the, CEO or whatever of Dogecoin. He's he plays around in the crypto space, and he's very much concerned with finance. Tesla owns a lot of Bitcoin, for example. And the reason he's doing that is not just purely for investment purposes, is because he understands from the very beginning with his whole money, trying to revolutionize money, take money into email. He understands that there's a lot of opportunity in that space. So even someone like Elon Musk, is my point, that does several things, has been gaining a lot of compounding interest within a certain area. He didn't just all of a sudden jump to Saudi Arabia and says, "Nah, I'm going to start digging for oil," with a whole new group of people with different types of. It's like that's not how it works. Okay, you're not going to get traction. Once you get traction, I think is another good word to kind of think about this kind of compounding as well, right? You need time in order to get the traction, and once you get the traction, you need to hold on to it. You can't just leave. Okay, so who's this Naval? Okay, that you see on your screen, ladies and gentlemen. And as you come in, please go ahead and click that like button. Okay, share the stream, bring some more people in here. Subscribe and hit the notification bell as well, because every week, Dr. Thunder and I are dropping gems about productivity and about how to get ish done. This is Getting Ish Done with Ike and Dr. Thunder. So who is Naval? Naval is an American entrepreneur. Okay, he is the founder and former CEO of AngelList. And he is one of these guys that kind of was an early investor in a lot of companies like Twitter, Uber, Foursquare, and whatnot. Another Silicon Valley type of guy. I happen to like Naval because he's not the kind of guy that just made his money off of one thing or one big spike or nothing like that. He has been grinding and just doing things for a long time, right? And hence, it's one of those people that you don't know about. But he's out there in San Jose somewhere with his billions, right? And he's also a good communicator. So when he's saying, hey, here's some tips about how to get rich, of which we're going to be talking about compounding and luck, by the way, he is someone to listen to. So we're going to be starting at this point of luck. And he's going to be telling us about the different types of luck, some of which are useful and some of which are you don't want to depend on. Okay, so let's begin. Hopefully it plays.
Obviously, we want to be wealthy and we want to get there in this lifetime without having to rely on luck. A lot of people think making money is about luck. It's not. It's about becoming the kind of person that makes money. You know, I like to think that if I lost all my money and if you drop me on a random street in any English-speaking country within 5.
What do you think about that very statement there? I know I have a habit of pausing every 2 seconds, but he said it's not about luck, it's about becoming the type of person that makes money. How does that strike you?
Yeah, well, it's it sounds a little bit like preparing for spontaneity. You know, there are preconditions that will tend to cause certain results, and then we call that luck.
Mm-hmm. And this is something that people also say, the thing about, you know, take all my money and then put me somewhere, or take all my, and again, this is not about, because he said becoming the type of person that is successful. Let's just put it that way. So do you see that in yourself in the sense that, look, okay, we strip everything away and we just take Dr. Thunder, you know, maybe take 20 years off of you as well, you know, so that, you know, you got some time to restart, put you in some other, as he puts it, English speaking locale, and do you feel like you'll be able to build yourself up back, you know, to where you are?
If I had the benefit of the knowledge that I have now, I hope that I would be able to achieve what I've achieved much faster, and be in a totally different sort of situation. Now, I mean, if I knew then what I know now, I would have gotten much more involved with, you know, podcasting, you know, all of that kind of stuff would have been, I would have jumped all over that right from, you know, and so then I would have been doing this for 20 years, you know, and that's that, you know, that would be a significant difference.
And you wouldn't make certain mistakes. I think that a huge part of that thing is, you know, you learn the kinds of mistakes not to make anymore, whether it be And you can make all kinds of mistakes that mess up your trajectory in life that have nothing to do with a particular business or whatever. Maybe it's mistakes with women that you're just not.
Oh yeah, I'll tell you that's the thing. That's the thing that would be totally different. If I knew what I knew now, I would have moved totally differently. But see, the thing is, the confidence that you gain and the different way that you move, in most respects, is because of the experiences that you have.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little strange to have that knowledge and that experience, but you haven't dealt with what would produce that, and that's the unfortunate. I don't know if it's unfortunate, but that's the trade-off.
It is the trade-off. Some people say Carl Jung, has a statement about be wary of unearned wisdom, right?
Yeah. And
that if you somehow got some particular insight, I don't know, you had a dream. You talk about, for example, music coming to you when you were younger, just dreaming about songs, or you have some particular vision, some revelation, and you just gain all this wisdom that sometimes it actually destroys you if you don't go through the organic, natural process way of getting it. So it is a catch-22.
The organic process is actually what protects you from destroying yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually protecting you because it's producing the maturity necessary for you to hold, for you to be the reservoir, as it were, of that information, of that knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Now, otherwise it's just straight poison.
All right, let us continue. He is saying, hey, we want to get rich, but we don't want to depend on luck. That is not the way. And he's going to break down luck into several aspects. Blind luck is what he's saying we don't want to depend on. Let's continue.
The kind of person that makes money. I like to think that if I lost all my money and if you drop me on a random street in any English-speaking country, within 5 to 10 years, I'd be wealthy again, right? Because it's just a skill set that I've developed and I think anyone can develop. In 1,000 parallel universes, you want to be wealthy in 999 of them. You don't want to be wealthy in the 50 of them where you got lucky. So we want to factor luck out of it. There's really 4 kinds of luck that we were talking about. This came from a book. Mark Andreessen wrote a blog post about it. But there's different kinds of luck. The first kind of luck you might just say is like blind luck, where I just got lucky because something completely out of my control happened. That fortune, that's fate, etc. Then there's luck that comes through persistence, hard work, hustle, motion, which is when you're just running around creating lots of opportunities, you're generating a lot of energy, you're doing a lot of things. Lots of things will just get stirred up in the dust. It's almost like mixing a petri dish and seeing what combines, or mixing a bunch of reagents and seeing what combines. You're just generating enough force and hustle and energy that luck will find you. A third way is that you just become very good at spotting luck. So if you are very skilled in a field, you will notice when a lucky break happens in that field when other people who aren't attuned to it won't notice. So you become sensitive to luck, and that's through skill and knowledge and work. And then the last kind of luck is the weirdest, hardest kind, but that's what we want to talk about, which is where you build a unique character, a unique brand, a unique mindset, where then luck finds you. For example.
So let's quickly recap the 4. The first one is blind luck. We want to dismiss that one. That's just, we know what blind luck is. Diamonds fell from the sky, landed in your pocket. Okay. Secondly, there is the hustle mentality. Okay, which he is also saying it's not the best, right? That mentality of I'm gonna do all these different things and something will come up. Okay. And then the third one is a little bit more proactive, where it's like, okay, I'm going to keep my eyes sharp. Maybe I have some skill, and also I have some intuition. I can kind of see, and I'm like, hey, don't you guys see what's over there? And Donald Trump talks about this all the time, about finding money, and it's almost like you're in a room and there's like $1,000 sitting on the table and no one else seems to see it. And Donald Trump, prides himself on always seeing the $1,000 on the table and just picking it up, and it's like no one saw it. I in my experience, I see these types of things as well, where it's almost like obvious, like, okay, well, there it is. If you do this thing, if we take this opportunity right now, this will be a big thing, okay? And sometimes people don't see it. And then the number 4 one is building yourself up such that luck finds you, which is that whole thing about people are going to bring the opportunity to you. He's going to give an example right now, right? But what are your thoughts about that? He's dismissed the first 3, and he said that number 4, which is forget blind luck, forget hustle, do 1,000 things and just finding something, mixing a whole bunch of reagents and finding something. Forget even the idea of, just spotting it. Now we're going to create something that luck finds, right? What are your thoughts about that so far?
It seems like 3 and 4 are kind of the same thing from a
they're definitely. You can't be number 4 without having number 3. Like, you can't. How are you going to see, right? Number 3 is kind of a requisite. Like, you need to be able to see the opportunities, right? Which is number 3, in order to then be like, oh, if I develop these skills, create this character, create this company, create this whatever it may be, then the luck will find me. Yeah, so I would definitely, I agree with you there. Number 3 and 4 should be combined.
Yeah, and it's creating something and then luck finds you. It does seem like he's just saying the same thing from a different perspective. So, obviously 3 and 4 are of the 4 presented, 3 and 4 are clearly the better options, the better ways to try to move with respect to that.
Okay, so he's going to give an example now of what number 4 is.
Brand a unique mindset where then luck finds you. For example, let's say that you're the best person in the world at deep sea underwater diving, and you're known to take on deep sea underwater dives that nobody else will even attempt to dare. And then by sheer luck, somebody finds a sunken treasure ship off the coast they can't get at. Well, their luck just became your luck, because they're going to come to you to get that treasure and you're going to get paid for it. Now, that's an extreme example, but it's just showing how the person who got lucky by finding the treasure chest, that was blind luck. But them coming to you and asking you to extract it and having to give you half, that's not luck. You created your own luck. You put yourself in a position to be able to capitalize on that luck, or to attract that luck when nobody else has created that opportunity for themselves. So when we talk about without getting lucky, we want to be deterministic. We don't want to leave it to chance.
Do you want to elaborate a little bit more on the idea that in 1,000 parallel universes, you want to get rich in 999 of them? I think some people are going to see that and say, that sounds impossible, sounds like it's too good to be true.
No, I don't think it's impossible. I think that you may have to work a little bit harder at it given your starting circumstances. I mean, remember, I started as a poor kid in India, right? So if I can make it, anybody can, in that sense. Now, obviously, I had all my limbs and I had my mental faculties and I did have an education. So there are some prerequisites you can't get past. But if you're listening to this video or podcast, you probably have the requisite means at your disposal, which is a functioning body and a functioning mind. And I've encountered plenty of bad luck along the way. First little fortune that I made, I instantly lost in the stock market. The second little fortune that I made, or I should have made, I got cheated by my business partners. It's only the third time around has been a charm. And even then, it has been a slow and steady struggle. And I haven't made money in my life in one giant payout. It's always been a whole bunch of small things piling up. So it's more about consistently creating wealth by creating businesses and creating opportunities and creating investments. It hasn't been like a giant one-off thing. My personal wealth has not been generated by one big year. It just stacks up little bit chips at a time, more often.
Okay. So people are saying, hey, the whole 999 universes, you're wealthy as opposed to, depending on blind luck in 50 out of 1,000. And it is related to the whole thing about, well, take me out of here, put me in some other place where they speak English. I'm gonna make my money as well. And he's pushing back and saying, well, isn't that kind of impossible? And I think his argument now is, well, No, it's not impossible because, as a matter of fact, it was never one thing that happened. It was all this accumulation of different things, right? Including bad things and then good things. And that he cannot see any other universe where this cannot be, shall we say, duplicated. You put him somewhere else, he's just going to get back in the mix. And then good things and bad things are going to happen. He knows how to compound the good things and that kind of stuff. Any comments so far?
Yeah, I mean, I would tend to agree that it's skill that can create that, as opposed to the first kind of luck that described. So I can see a scenario where if he gets broke, he's going to find a way to get back on top again. And the sort of inverse or the opposite of this principle is the sort of people hit the lotto and then wind up broke. They won $200 million and somehow they're broke. And of course, they're never going to be able to get back to that because there was no skill associated with generating the wealth. So obviously more likely someone like him that did it with skill is going to be able to recreate that. That's an interesting thing too. Like teachers, especially, teachers of certain kinds of students, right? Or mentors of certain kinds of really, students that have a lot of natural ability and like this. Sometimes the teacher can get it in their head that somehow they created the student, right? And the thing is maybe they have one of their students is wildly successful, becomes wildly successful. The question, then the point is, well, if you made the student, then make another one. Okay, so there is that kind of So.
I like your inverse thing where it's like somebody gets 200 million or 20 million or whatever it may be, and because they did not get it through skill and they haven't developed skill, personality, confidence, and all that kind of stuff, and they're not going to get it again. But someone like him who did it through skill, personality, confidence, and all that kind of stuff will be able to win it, will get the money again, not necessarily win. And this thing you just mentioned about the student, it is linked to something else, which is behind the pushback that the interviewer gave to Naval. The pushback is that people don't want to believe that there's a lot of skill involved in success. It sounds crazy. It sounds like, well, of course there's skill involved in success. Come on, you try to play basketball or something else. But especially when it comes to money, okay, people want to believe, those lucky rich people, or those people who inherited their money, or silver spoon in it. Whatever it is that people tend to say about someone who is successful, in order for them to feel better. I think that is also the reason why people would tend to think that some teacher, some mentor made somebody else. But in reality, there's a daily, forget just, it's a grind, it's a struggle. There is a daily grind. It's like people say, success is not bought, it is rented, and rent is due every day, right? It's a daily grind, like every day. It's not, and there is no way around that. There is no way around that. And the grind comes in different ways, okay? The grind, for example, is, okay, well, let me try to give an example, okay? Might not be a very great example, but talking about granular, repeated struggles. Let's say a few minutes before the podcast, right? I had to do some kind of like, I have this golf balls and tennis balls that I use that I roll on the ground with, to do that, the muscle stuff, right? Which is something that over time, I know that when I get a certain type of lethargy, a certain type of tiredness, a certain type of whatever, even if it does, I can't necessarily feel the muscle that it's coming from, but I know that's what it is, right? I know that I gotta do some kind of stretching and all that type of stuff. Now, that is a necessity in order for me to be productive at a certain level. Now I could just chill and go drink whiskey and be like, oh, whatever, I'm just gonna do certain other types of things rather than deal with this. But no, there is the daily grind of me pulling out that ball. Okay, now I gotta loosen this muscle up. I gotta hydrate. I gotta do all these other things. Even at that level, this is skill. These are skills and from skill and experience and blah, blah, blah. And people don't want to look at it that way, because when they see someone who is successful, envy kicks in. And they don't want to think that, oh, this guy's more disciplined than I am. This guy actually knows himself more than I am, no more than I do. People rather say, oh, he's just a silly bastard, whatever, right? So anyways.
That makes me think of something. So the answer usually to a variety of problems is not having done the thing that puts you in the circumstance that you're currently in. Right? That's the real answer. But that's obviously a hard thing to hear. And then it becomes, well, why are you trying to tell me something that obviously I can't control at this point? Well, the answer to that is it may be not about you. It could be about other people that are watching, as it were, to warn them not to make those mistakes. But people want to behave in a way to suggest that the lack of preparations, the mistakes, the funky decisions they made should not have anything to do with what their results will be. And they want to look at themselves in the same way that they look at someone that did not make any of those mistakes, made only good decisions with respect to a particular thing. Everybody makes mistakes, some kind of mistakes. But the person that did all the prep work in them they're not in the same situation. They're not going to get the same results. They want the same results anyway. And that's one of the reasons why in places like the Manosphere, there's a lot of discussion about, the single mother thing, right? Or there's discussion about, being very selective when you decide who you're going to marry. All of this kind of stuff, because that stuff can have irreversible consequences where you have put yourself so far behind that there's no way to recover, because part of this sort of orienting yourself to where the money's going to be, and getting your ducks in a row and all that it requires that you already did that stuff. That's the implication of this compound concept that you were speaking of earlier. If you had already done X, Y, and Z, imagine where you'd be right now. And so when you look at people that are very wealthy, and maybe they were ahead of the curve, they thought of an idea like a Facebook or something before anybody else did. Well, yeah, that's why I don't think that's just a happenstance. They were measuring and weighing out the kinds of decisions, the kind of people that they would interact with, making sure that they didn't make certain kinds of errors so that they would be in a certain situation. So yeah, categorically I pretty much reject this sort of, you made all the mistakes, you did all the wrong stuff, and you expect the same results as someone that made the right decisions and did all the right stuff. That's not, it's, if you desire fairness, that's clearly not fair. even if you're clamoring for fairness, you're not clamoring for fairness. You're clamoring for something that's patently not fair. You're clamoring for what that person did. All of the extra time that they spent in, for that to count for nothing. That's actually what you're arguing for.
Yeah, let's continue. But that's why much of the egalitarian impulse tends to wants to pull people down rather than lift people up, right? It's like, okay, want people to be equal, but you're not talking about lifting people up. You're always looking up to try to talk crap about people up top.
By one big year, it just stacks up little bit chips at a time. More options, more businesses, more investments, more things I can do. Same way, someone like a Ninad, De La Certis, he's building his brand online, he's building videos. It's not like any one video is going to suddenly shower him with riches overnight. It's going to be a long lifetime of learning, of reading, of creating, that's just going to compound. So we're talking about getting wealthy so you can retire, so you have your freedom. Not retire in the sense that you don't do anything, but in the sense that you don't have to be any place you don't want to be. You don't have to do anything you don't want to do. And you can wake up when you want. You can sleep when you want. You don't have a boss. That's freedom. So we're talking about enough wealth to get to freedom. And especially thanks to the internet these days, those opportunities are massively abundant. I, in fact, have too many ways to make money. I don't have enough time. I literally have opportunities pouring out of my ears, and the thing I keep running out of is time. There's just so many ways to create wealth, to create products, to create businesses, to create opportunities, and to, as a byproduct, get paid by society, that I just can't even handle it all.
I think it's pretty interesting that the first three kinds of luck that you described, there are very common cliches for them that everybody knows. And then for that last kind of luck that comes to you out of the unique way that you act, there's no real cliche for it. So for the first three kinds, there's dumb luck or blind luck. That's the first kind of luck. The second kind of luck, there's the cliche that fortune favors the bold. That's a person who gets lucky just by stirring the pot and acting. The third kind of luck, people say that chance favors the prepared mind. But for the fourth kind of luck, there is not really a common cliche out there that matches the unique character of your action, which I think is interesting and perhaps an opportunity. And it also just shows that people aren't necessarily taking advantage of that kind of luck the way they should be.
I think also,
I want to say something before we continue here. It just comes to mind, and it's a pushback. It's a give the devil its due. Here's what I suspect, because I'm going to use myself as an example. It is very difficult. Let me put it differently. I suspect that this guy is using the benefit of hindsight, right? I'm not taking anything away from him. He is the guy he says he is, right? He does the thing. He found that opportunity, developed himself in a particular way. Things happened. But I think that while he was doing it, there was a lot of intuition involved, as opposed to I'm going to create this little thing over here, and then the luck is gonna come this way and that. I think he's probably one of these intuitives out there that has a certain type of character traits and is hardworking and does all these types of things. And then with the benefit of hindsight, it could be like, here's how it happens. Now it doesn't really matter, okay, Dr. Thunder, other than the fact that it is hard to reproduce by someone else who might not already. In other words, it's like, it's this kind of stuff that sounds like preaching to the choir. It's like, yeah, I see that. But it's like someone whom is not in the same room, the same type of person whom can spot opportunities intuitively, and whom is intuitively, or shall we say instinctively hardworking and all that kind of stuff, is not going to be able to take this advice. Am I completely off base here?
Yeah, and actually, if the logic follows, really he's a second kind of luck guy. He's a hustle guy, but he's using his intuition. He just has a particular knack, and then hindsight's 20/20. So then he can erect these things. So then, in a matter of speaking, he's really talking to people that are oriented similarly to him.
Which, by the way, more and more is the way in which communication happens, right? Especially any kind of communication where you're trying to influence people or teach people, is that you learn, it's obviously, you can kind of, but there is a kind of like this perfect lightning rod of you're this type of person and you're talking to the same exact type of people, and boom, it's like they get the most out of you, right?
Yep.
I in many, many different areas. For example, one of the areas that I realized this in a while ago was in philosophy, which is, now, first of all, not, most people don't like philosophy or don't get it because philosophy is like art, right? It is useless in a certain sense. So you have to have a particular type of orientation to get it. But also, take Nietzsche, for example, okay? If you are not like Nietzsche, if you don't already haven't come to the conclusions and have the kinds of insights they have, you're not going to learn anything from him. Now, this is someone they say that people say is very profound, very deep, and all that kind of stuff. Yes, it's true. But I recognize that everything that Nietzsche is saying, well, here's how I came to it, and I'll quickly move on here. But shout out to Atonement, okay, for the $10 super chat. Thank you very much. But what I found was that people complaining about Nietzsche, like, it doesn't make sense. And then I'm like scratching my head. I'm like, it makes perfect sense. And I immediately realized, they're correct. Nietzsche doesn't make any sense. I'm the one that I already kind of agree with him. I see what he saw, because Nietzsche writes, he said, well, what if truth was a woman? Now, the image that he's trying to create, I'm not going to continue with the passage, okay? But you have to then imagine what he means by truth being a woman, which is kind of like a finicky thing where you have to kind of like, it's not a direct approach. You have to take those kinds of things. And then he paints this whole elaborate picture of truth being a woman. And if you don't think in this type of way, you'll be like, what the hell did he just say? What does he put truth being a what? So there's a certain type of mind that needs things spelled out, where it's like premise A, premise B, premise C, premise D, and then here's the and here's the conclusion. Nietzsche doesn't write that way. So you're 100% right here that this guy Naval is talking to people that are similarly built, similarly constituted, and but let us continue the things. Yeah, go ahead.
I've argued. I've argued this frequently. I'm sure I've said this a few times on Getting Ish Done. And that is, there's a certain kind of person that you are going to be very effective communicating to. And so so you can play the numbers game, right? And you can say, okay, if I spread the net out and say things in a certain way, well, you may reach more people, but it'll be in a very shallow way, right? And you can't really, not for any lengthy period of time, you can't really not be you. You can't do someone else better than they can do that, right? And they can do that with more energy and forever, where you can do like a poor characterization of it, for a short period of time. So the best approach as far as longevity goes, and actually in the most meaningful way, reaching the people that you'll have the deepest impact on, is really figuring out who you are and going with that, developing the things that you need to, the uniqueness that you provide, all of that stuff is going to end up being an asset to the person that can hear you, right? Because everybody won't be able to hear you, and it's okay that everybody can't hear you. It's probably good that everybody can't hear you. This might have been on Getting Ish Done. I think it was Ramil. I'm sorry. Case Closed this past Sunday. Really good discussion. Folks should go and check that episode out. And Ramil was saying there's a lot of folks that probably shouldn't even be talking to each other on because of social media. And I thought that was an astute assessment. That's one of the issues, one of the problems that we have is that too many people are trying to talk to the masses like this. See, before it used to be like you talked to a couple people and you didn't have access to everybody else. And so we were sort of sectioned off from a lot of this additional sort of upheaval and turmoil because you didn't have a bunch of people that were never going to agree with each other. We're going to hate each other's guts just, intuitively, anyway. So we didn't have that kind of stuff. Now it's like a bunch of people that, as Ramil put it, and shout out to him, a bunch of people are talking that shouldn't even probably be talking. They probably shouldn't even be having conversations. There's nothing positive is ever going to come up.
100%.
Yeah,
I agree with that. As I was speaking, as you was, a couple more of those Nietzscheisms came to mind. Nietzsche is the one that says, you look into the abyss long enough, it'll look back at you like, and if you don't already know what that is, what exactly is that, Dr. Thunder?
It's not formal logic.
It's not formal logic at all. That's the main. There's zero formal logic in all of Nietzsche's writings, right? He writes in what they call aphorisms. It's just like it's maxims. It's just like, and he's the old one that also say, "What doesn't kill you make you stronger," which is more kind of relatable. I think you can get that. But that's how he just writes. And the people who can see what he's seeing, you're like, oh, this is great. But if you don't see that stuff, it's just like, what the fuck? But 100%, go ahead, be yourself, and you will have the most impact. You may not be, and because the people around saying Nietzsche doesn't make any sense now, but at least they're talking about him, right? So, yeah, good point there.
At that point, it starts becoming so deterministic that it stops being luck. So the definition starts fading from luck to more destiny. So I would characterize that fourth one is you build your character in a certain way, and then your character becomes your destiny. One of the things I think that is important to making money.
Sounds like karma, but we're not going to get into that, Dr. Thunder. We're not going to get into that.
I mean, you want the kind of reputation that makes people do deals through you. I use the example of if you're a great diver, then treasure hunters will come and give you a piece of the treasure for your diving skills. If you're a trusted, reliable, high integrity, long-term thinking deal maker, then when other people want to do deals, but they don't know how to do them in a trustworthy manner with strangers, they will literally approach you and give you a cut of the deal or offer you.
Do you have examples of these kinds of opportunities? Because obviously we're still in a number 4 type of luck here where, you're creating a unique character. The first example is, you are the best diver. Anybody who finds treasure is going to come to you. In your life, do you, recent or in the past, have you come across these types of opportunities coming to you as a result of certain things you have developed about your character, if you will?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Something occurred to me. This may seem like a strange connection, but so it's about the importance of networking, marketing yourself. There's a lot of introverted artistic types, right? And so the whole marketing, sales, that whole aspect of it is challenging. It's challenging to deal with, and so you could be the greatest of all time at it, at a particular skill, but you're in your closet, and that's, you don't interact with anybody, you don't network, you don't go communicate, so they don't know who you are. And so an aspect of what he was saying, I'd say is false. And that is this idea that just because you have a skill set that somebody's going to come and give you money. No, that's not how it works. But the other part of it, this thing about becoming trustworthy and, this sort of dependable, and, you have all of that stuff is based on actually human interaction.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So so even if you are an introvert, and you don't really want to have to interact with people that way, and you don't really want to have to sell yourself and all that, even if that's the case, you did it to the extent that you could develop trust in other people. And then when they get an opportunity, they have a particular engagement, then they're going to tend to look around at the people that they've had positive interactions with, and they're going to tighten them up first. The reason why you tighten up the people that are close to you, that you've had these positive interactions with, rather than trying to find some awesomely, natural ability person that you've had no interaction with, is that you want repeat clients. You want the person to come back, and you can't take a chance on somebody that you know nothing about. You can't say, hey, well, this guy's got all the skill, and we're always, so terrific. This is like legendary, this is, I've heard all of these great, weird stories about just this abstract, level of intelligence. It's just unmatched. Okay, that's great. And that sounds good to talk about. But what is the person like to actually work with? Is this person going to show up to the gig with the right clothes on? Are they going to show up on time? Are you going to be able to communicate with them? Are they going to be trying to fight you and stuff? I'm like, okay, I'm the band leader, I'm telling you what to do. Are they going to be trying to, to push back on everything that you say? And, are they going to be polite to the, to the client? It's a private party or something you're doing. See, you end up with, you can't take certain kinds of risks as the employee, as the employer. You can't take those risks if you want repeat clients. It's just, you just can't do that. And so that's why it is that's why that is so effective and so important for people to be trustworthy, to have good character, to be, to have a lot of positive interactions with the people that they work with, because that's where your jobs are going to come from.
100%.
Trustworthy manner with strangers, they will literally approach you and give you a cut of the deal or offer you a unique deal just because of the integrity and reputation that you've built up. Warren Buffett, he gets offered deals and he gets to buy companies and he gets to buy warrants and bail out banks and do things that other people can't do because of his reputation. But of course, that's fragile. It has accountability on the line. It has a strong brand on the line. And as we will talk about later, that comes with accountability attached. But I would say your character, your reputation, these are things that you can build that then will let you take out advantages of opportunities that other people may characterize as lucky, but you know that it wasn't luck.
You said that this fourth kind of luck is more or less a destiny. There's a quote from that original book that was in Mark's blog post from Benjamin Disraeli, who I think was the former prime minister of the UK. The quote to describe this kind of luck was, "We make our fortunes and we call them fate." There were a couple other interesting things about this kind of luck that were mentioned in the blog post. I think it'll be good for the listeners to hear about, is that this fourth kind of luck can almost come out of eccentric ways that you do your things, and that eccentricity is not necessarily a bad thing in this case. In fact, it's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely, because the world is a very efficient place. So everyone has dug through all the obvious places to dig. And so to find something that's new and novel and uncovered, it helps to be operating on a frontier, where right there you have to be a little eccentric to be out on the frontier by yourself. And then you just have to be willing to dig deeper than other people do, deeper than seems irrational, just because you're interested.
Yeah, the two quotes that I've seen that express this kind of luck, in addition to that Benjamin Disraeli one, are this one from Sam Altman, where he said, "Extreme people get extreme results." I think that's pretty nice. And then there's this other one from Jeffrey Pfeffer, who's a professor at Stanford, that you can't be normal and expect abnormal returns.
Yeah, they've come right back around to the whole thing about, well, if you see somebody that's kind of successful, don't just assume. You should know that they're doing something that you're not doing, or you can start from the personality end of things, where you were talking about eccentricity. You're out there on the frontier, and also you're interested, so you're digging deeper than people would dig. But also you have probably developed a stronger backbone, have better work ethic, kind of certain other types of things that other people have not developed, right? And you see extreme results. There's something extreme going on with the individual. And you should be looking to, and that should be good news, right? It's like, there is a side of the equation here where I have agency. I can start developing my own eccentricities and my own whatever it may be, right? My character, building it such that, I can get some extreme results, because the game is sewn up everywhere else, right?
Yeah. So here's I have a sort of gut pushback when people start when they start talking about when there's a sort of pedestalization of eccentricity. Okay. Because it's not really the eccentricity that's creating the results. It's the skill, right? It's the work ethic. It's all of the stuff that's happening simultaneously. I'll give you an example. So, Miles Davis. Okay. So, Miles Davis is, one of the most important musicians of all time. Very much influential. Miles would do some really strange things on the stage, especially towards the end. He was doing stuff like he was turning his back on the audience. He was, doing weird stuff. He was very, eccentric. The way that he interacted with the band, just certain behaviors that he had. He was just a kind of a strange guy. Okay. And even with the way that he dressed, a sort of kind of flamboyance with the way that he dressed without being sort of, without being effeminate. He had like a certain thing that he did. And even in his playing, his musicianship, he started to capitalize on sort of simplicity in his playing, using space, as one of the usual components in the way that he expressed his ideas. All of this stuff that he was doing was very kind of odd in a matter of speaking. Now, I would argue that in many ways the reason that he was able to get away with that was because he was so killing, that he was so great. His talent was at epic proportions, so that people would deal with him even though he was eccentric, as opposed to he's eccentric, that's why I dig him. More people need to be eccentrics, and then that's how we can, that's how you can really get over. And in my conversations with students, especially students that were resistant to doing the work that I was telling them they needed to do to get themselves to the next level, the discipline, the learning how to play their instrument at a certain level, all of that, they would try to cite Miles as someone that didn't, Miles, he was more, he didn't have a lot of technique, he was kind of an eccentric, kind of weird kind of dude. That's what's so great about, this music is because, you can be like a weirdo and you can be, so they would try to go into that bag.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with going into that bag with Miles is Miles went to Juilliard. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you can't get into Juilliard unless you can really, really play.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And Miles, early Miles playing with Charlie Parker, and this was after sort of Diz. This was during a period Diz wasn't playing with Parker. John Gillespie, Dizzy Gillespie, wasn't playing with him, and Dizzy was regarded as maybe the greatest trumpet player on the earth when he was alive, right? Technically everything, right? So you listen to a lot of those early Charlie Parker records and you think it's Dizzy, but it's actually Miles, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what that tells you is that Miles was at that technical level and decided that he wanted to do something else. That's different.
Mm-hmm.
That's different than someone that says the objective should be eccentric,
Mm-hmm.
and then that will overshadow the fact that you have no substance.
Mm-hmm.
So
this what you just said is kind of funny. I thought about this earlier today, and I was like, actually thought about you. I was like, yeah, this is somebody, and it's a problem in the arts, right? Somebody was saying something about, I'm not gonna call out the name of the particular artist or let's like get into the particular thing, but someone was giving a lot of kudos to somebody just out of some kind of weird, fluffy, but given their history and their this and that. I'm like, but it was a horrible show, right? Like that kind of thing. And I was like, here we go again. Artists are always doing this crap, or artists, because it's in the arts, it's a kind of amenable to people saying these kinds of nonsense. And, the arts gets tarnished with this type of stuff. And I thought, I was like, yeah, people like Dr. Thunder out there busting their ass, trying to get things right, do things correctly and well and developing their skill. And then you have people over here just praising somebody just out of some just nonsense, right? And so it's always good when you push back in this regard. Now, it's just you can't get away with this crap in most other areas or in many other areas, right? Because when he was talking about the eccentricity, what I thought of was immediately like, okay, you got to be out there in unexplored territory, okay? And let's say there's going to be some digging that needs to be done. I don't know, maybe it's gold, maybe it's diamond, maybe it's oil, right? There's going to be a group of people that are in that unexplored territory. 99% of them are useless. They don't know how to dig, right? They're just weird hippies or eccentric characters that are just in the hinterlands, right? It's not being in the hinterland, as you say, or, that's kind of more or less what you're saying. It's not being in the hinterland that makes you become wealthy and find the gold. It's the actual digging, okay? You gotta dig, and you gotta have the skill and all these other types of things. And it just so turns out that in most other areas where not outside the arts, you can't fake the digging, okay? Like you can't fake the digging. But these students of yours that come through and saying, oh yeah, but like that guy was also in the hinterlands, and you see he found gold. I'm a hinterland kind of guy, and you're like, you can kind of. In many other areas, they're like, well, but where is the gold? Where is the gold? But these fake artists want to try to say, just because I'm in the hinterland and I have blue hair, therefore I'm it as well. So I think that it's a good point that you bring up each time this type of crap comes up. But let us continue, because it also ties in with the whole the uniqueness aspect of you be yourself, and you can make the most impact that way, as opposed to diluting and watering down, spreading out, right? And you're not going to be as impactful, right? But eccentricity will not be the word per se, but maybe authenticity. Just kind of you be yourself, and dig into that. And that's where you're probably going to find the most if you go. But let's go.
Always enjoyed that one too.
Yeah, and one quote that I like, which is the exact opposite of that, is play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Right? A lot of people spend a lot of their time playing social games, like on Twitter, where you're just trying to improve your social standing, and you basically win stupid social prizes, which are worthless.
I guess the last thing that I have from this blog post is just the idea that by pursuing these kinds of luck, especially the last one, basically everything but dumb luck, by pursuing them, you essentially run out of unlock. So if you just keep stirring the pot and stirring the pot, that alone, you will run out of unlock.
Yeah, or it could just be a reversion to the mean, right? So then you at least neutralize luck so that it's your own talents that come into play.
Let's go into more specific details on how you can actually get rich and how you can't get rich. The first point was about how you're not going to get rich. You're not going to get rich renting out your time. You must own equity, a piece of a business, to gain your financial freedom.
This is probably one of the absolute most important points. People seem to think that you can create wealth and make money through work, and it's probably not going to work. There are many reasons for that, but the most basic is just that your inputs are very closely tied to your outputs. In almost any salaried job, even one that's paying a lot per hour, like a lawyer or a doctor, you're still putting in the hours, and every hour you get paid. So what that means is when you're sleeping, you're not earning. When you're retired, you're not earning. When you're on vacation, you're not earning. And you can't earn non-linearly. If you look at even doctors who get rich, like really rich, it's because they open a business. They open like a private practice, and that private practice builds a brand, and that brand attracts people, or they build some kind of a medical device or a procedure or a process where they have intellectual property. So essentially, you're working for somebody else. And that person is taking on the risk and has the accountability and the intellectual property and the brand. So they're just not going to pay you enough. They're going to pay you the bare minimum that they have to get you to do the job. And that can be a high bare minimum, but it's still not going to be true wealth where you're retired. And then finally, you're actually just not even creating that much original for society. Like I said, this tweet storm should have been called How to Create Wealth. It's just How to Get Rich was a more catchy title. But you're not creating new things for society. You're just doing things over and over. And you're essentially replaceable because you're now doing a set role. Most set roles.
He's job shaming. That's what people like to call this one, right? But it's just the truth. You are not gonna. There's no reason. Let me start from the whom is paying you side of the equation. There is no reason why people are gonna give you enough money for you to retire. You know what I mean? Like to leave, to stop doing the thing. Like so some people call job just over broke, right? Meaning, if you know, as an employer, forget all that. Let's go to the other side of the thing, which is something I always talk about, which is like
I do want to say something about that though.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Sounding a little bit like what is that what is that viral video where the guy is asking he's asking some random women, black women in particular, younger black women, would they prefer a drug dealer, a scammer, or 9 to 5?
There's always truth in those, but go ahead.
Yeah, right. So would you say it is
the drug dealer?
Be the drug dealer, because at least you're on top. Yeah, right.
100%. And of course, here's the thing about that. Just to mention something is, they want the top drug dealer. They want the actual entrepreneur, the actual smart guy. Because look, there are all kinds of people selling dime bags in the street corner. Okay, that doesn't mean nothing. Okay, what they're thinking of is the entrepreneurial, built an organization, can influence people, he's a leader, right? And whether he's he started a legitimate business, or he's in Silicon Valley, or he's a CEO, or he's the CEO of Drug Inc., they tend to be this. They have the same type of characteristics. Okay. Now, one is doing something illegal, right? Fine. Especially when we just keep it within the legal versus illegal realm. then as a matter of fact, what I mean is this: you have immoral and you have illegal, right? So let's remove the moral aspect. If you just talk about legal versus illegal, a lot of times you can't tell the difference between these two people. Someone in a legal business versus an illegal business. Forget the moral part now, right? Just because illegal is just, what's written down somewhere, right? A lot of times it's the same character, the same guy that's the drug, the kingpin is also Elon Musk, right? There's no real difference, okay? So
Frank Lucas could have been
100%. The problem that women don't seem to understand is it's still the same percentage. It's 1 out of 200 guys, right? It's not like, I'll just go for the drug dealer. It's like, that's 1 out of 200 drug dealers. You're like, no, you can't win. Right. You can't win this game. You can't cheat. You can't cheat the game. Like, it's no matter what, if you rare things for the rare, exceptional things for the exceptional, like was just said earlier. You see some kind of exceptional success, that's an exceptional person. It's not, it's the drugs. It's not the drugs, okay? You're still just going to be with a bum drug dealer dude. It's not the drugs that is the thing. So, good point there. Good point that you brought up. But the job thing, I always say this, which is I just sent payments today to employees, right? And why am I able to charge so much money over here from the client and then pay the employee a fraction? And the employee is happy. Okay. What is the difference there? It's something that I always try to tell people. The difference is that I went and I built a brand, built a company, did all that kind of stuff, right? I've taken the risk, okay? And this is not even the whole working while having things work for you while you sleep, because that may be a leap that is too far for people where now I got to patent some kind of technology. I got to create some kind of thing. That's too much. No, simply by being the person that reaches out to the marketplace and gets paid first, that gets, you're the one that is telling the client, here's what it's going to cost, and you're getting paid. And how did I get there? Is again by building my brand, my reputation, my trust, and all that kind of stuff, right?
What's 50% of zero?
Oh, I think that's zero.
So the point here is, why does it matter? Why does it matter if there is no money to be distributed? Why does it matter what percentage the person that's paying you is getting?
Exactly.
Why does that matter? Because the only reason that you're getting any of it is because, right? So what's 75% of zero? It's still zero. But hey, what's of $100,000? What's 1% or 10% of that? Okay, well.
Mm-hmm.
That seems better.
Yeah, and the reason I say this, by the way, is to encourage people. It's not to say, stop complaining about what you're getting paid. It's to say, look, I'm telling you, I'm an engineer, a C student type of engineer, by the way, which is it's not about intelligence. It's about what you're focusing on. Okay. I'm that C student type of engineer that has these A students working for me. Okay, and the encouragement here is I know 100% that they're doing the actual work vis-a-vis what the client wants. The deliverable is coming from this person. What is the difference then? Like between me and them is that I went out there and I can ask the client for, in other words, there's a whole big thing that needs to happen between you just receiving money from an employer versus you actually going directly to the marketplace, because they have to trust you. And if in order for them to trust you, there are all these things you got to do, right?
Yeah, risk is the difference. Risk, right? You're taking the risk. That's why you get the money, is because you take the risk.
Yep. The risk of the reputation. It's my stamp on the drawings, right? Or on the deliverable, which is, that means my stamp, my insurance, my name, right? My reputation. I sold them that I'm a good engineering company, hire me, all that kind of stuff. And that is the only difference. And that difference comes about through compounding. It's not the guy that I'm giving the fraction of the money to. It's not just going to be like, F this, I'm going to go ask the client directly. right? I'm gonna go directly to the client, and this is something. Now I'm talking on the other side. The first side is encouragement. Look, the only difference between me and the guy I'm paying is that I've taken certain steps and established myself. Now, the other side is, look, the other guy can't just wake up tomorrow and just go knock on the client's door like, hey, give me the money directly. The client is not going to do that. It's not going to give him, because there's no need to keep on rehashing it, okay? But whatever the difference is between you just getting the money through through the middleman, which in this case, I'm kind of like the middleman, versus you getting the money directly, that's everything, okay? And you got to find a way to cut out middlemen out of your life. It's the easy aspect of this, as opposed to, working for yourself. Because he talks about the doctors that are wealthy, they have a practice, right? They put up a shingle and then they hire other people around, right? And the amount of money that trust garners, which is what we're saying here. You put up the risk, you put up all that, blah, 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 and then people trust you. They will give you this fat chunk of money. If this employee of mine goes directly to the client and says, look, I'll cut the money, I'll charge you only a quarter of what Ike is charging you, they probably still won't give him the money, because I don't know you, right? I don't know who you are. You don't like, why should I give you this? I'd rather give Ike 4 times more than I can give you anything. And you've said these kinds of things already within this conversation, right?
Yep, that's right.
So let's continue. Yeah, it does sound like job shaming. People like to pull out their, the insecurities start showing and all that kind of stuff about like, oh, you're saying that, it's like, but it's true though. You're not going to get rich by just working a job.
Can be taught. If they can be taught, like in a school, then eventually you're going to be competing with someone who's got more recent knowledge, who's been taught and is coming in to replace you. You're much more likely to be doing a job that can be eventually replaced by a robot or by an AI. And it doesn't even have to be wholesale replaced overnight. It can be replaced a little bit of a time, and that eats into your wealth creation and therefore your earning capability. So fundamentally, your inputs are matched to your outputs, you're replaceable, and you're not being creative. I just don't think that is a way that you can truly make money. So everybody who really makes money at some point owns a piece of a product or a business or some kind of IP. That can be through stock options. So if you can be working at a tech company, that's a fine way to start. But usually the real wealth is created by starting your own companies, or by, even investors, they're in an investment firm and they're buying equity. So these are much more the routes to wealth. It doesn't come through the hours. You really just want a job or a career or a profession where your inputs don't match to your outputs. So if you look at modern society, I'll get into this later in the tweet storm, businesses that have high creativity and high leverage tend to be ones where you could do an hour of work and it can have a huge effect, or you can do 1,000 hours of work and it can have no effect. For example, look at software engineering. One great engineer can, for example, create Bitcoin and create billions of dollars worth of value. An engineer who's working on the wrong thing, or not quite as good, or just not as creative or thoughtful or whatever, can work for an entire year, and every piece of code that they ship ends up not getting used. Customers don't want it. That is an example of a profession where the input and the outputs are highly disconnected. It's not based on the number of hours that you put in. Whereas on the
What do you think about that, Dr. Thunder? It's a novel way of putting it, which is you want to find a place where there's not a direct correlation between input and output. Okay, we kind of generally know that. And I like this example here where, one engineer can create Bitcoin and can have 100 engineers creating 100 other things that don't do nothing, right? And this kind of non-correlation between one minute of work equals $1. That's not where you want to be. You want to be in a place where 1 minute of work could equal 0, or it could equal 1 billion. Well, what do you think about that?
Okay, so there's a direct relationship between what he's talking about. It's really the same idea. And say being a freelance musician, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's some freelance musicians that they're not making that, they're starving artists, right? They're not making very much money. Maybe they're doing what they like to do, but they're not making very much money. And then there are some that hit it filthy rich, and they're hardly doing anything, and they're just raking in all kind of dough, right? And so, and often is the case that the musicians that are working harder actually are a lot more skilled than the ones that are making the buku bucks, right? And now, so the problem with that is a lack of stability, right? So if you really want the stability, then you're also probably trading the potential to make a lot more money. And that's why you end up, and it's not everybody. And this is the other thing. It's like you said, you still can't beat the game, because there's a bunch of people that maybe are doing all of the things that this guy is talking about. And they're on the zero side of the equation and not on the billion side of the equation. So you still have that same.
What's the solution? What's the solution, Dr. Thunder? Because I can. Well, what I'm thinking is you got to do both, right? In other words, you got to have your stable, something that is coming in, and part of this stability is, let's just call it, also keeping your monthly nut low, keeping your obligations low, okay? So that you're able to move by, exist, and subsist, and all that kind of stuff, and survive, while you're also trying maybe these other riskier things. And by the way, the arts are a very extreme. Just this last point here, and the arts are the worst in this kind of way, where Stephen King sells all the books and everybody else sells no books, right? But anyways, go ahead. So in the history of being a musician for a living, there have been different tracks. Okay, so you had one track which is known as freelance, and then another track is associated, connected to an institution. Okay, so those are the two tracks: freelance, connected to an institution. Now, there have been a lot of great composers, musicians, and it's in the history of music. Mozart at one point was connected to an institution, not just as a freelance. Beethoven, J.S. Bach, and all of his sons, associated with churches. So and then you have, and an extension of that is academics. So musicians that are teaching applied in the conservatory model. All right. Now, many of them maybe retired from being playing in a symphony orchestra, or actually a lot of them maybe are doing both, right? In an orchestra plus teaching. So this sort of becomes the sort of rise of what I call the hybrid model. Right. So the hybrid model is you have a teaching gig, but you're still doing all of the stuff that a freelance musician would be doing. Right. So you're out in the actual music industry. You're doing some experimenting. You're able to focus more on the stuff that you really want to do, as opposed to have to take stuff because your mortgage is due. Right. Because the teaching gig is taking care of that. So that would be my and there's a growing number of musicians, and even those that thought that at no point in time did they really want to teach, but that are taking the teaching jobs to create that stability, and then but still doing doing the other. And there's been some really successful musicians that started out as school teachers. They got all their licensure and all of the stuff that they have to be able to teach, in public schools music. They did all of the stuff they do, and then so they hit it big, right? I don't know if people have seen the movie Soul, the cartoon Soul. So there's some issues with Soul, but one thing I thought was I think well depicted was, so this guy, he's teaching, but really what if his dream could come true, he really wants to play just freelance. He just wants to play professionally with like a great band and tour and stuff. So he gets the opportunity to do that,
there's a bunch of happenstance, and he dies actually, and then he comes back, and there's a bunch of other stuff that happens. But really, he discovers that, well, playing was good, but actually what I get the most out of is actually teaching. So that it kind of goes full circle. But I don't know if people have seen the movie Mr. Holland's Opus. And this is an older movie, but this movie, the guy, he's a composer, and that's all he really wants to do. But he's got a kid on the way. He's got a mortgage to pay, X, Y, and Z. So he takes a teaching gig, and he's like, I'm only going to do this for a year or two or something like that until I get this other stuff happen. And then 30 years later, 40 years later or something, he gets pushed out of his job. He has to take an early retirement, but it's called Mr. Holland's Opus because he had an unpublished, unperformed manuscript of a piece. So a bunch of the students, a couple generations of students came back to perform that piece as a surprise, and he's of course the conductor. So that's why it was Mr. Holland's Opus. But so I kind of took it in the more specific, the music route, but we're still talking the same topic here.
Yeah, doing both, and I'm going to say something. Let me do a quick recap, and then I'm going to say something that I want you to kind of react to with regards to this doing both. Because both of them have their advantages and disadvantages, and that's why you want to do both, by the way. Because that's how you it's called hedging, right? That's how you invest, that's how you do things. You want to be like, okay, cool, I want the stability. Okay, the stability is efficient, blah blah blah, but I also want to be in this more inefficient place, which, by the way, has more upside, but also develop certain things. And my whole spiel about this is efficiency versus robustness, but that's not exactly where I'm going to end up this time. Robustness meaning forget the extremes of the arts, but generally speaking, when you're in a more jagged, you don't know where, things are more, shall we say, uncertain, you can volatile, you can actually be more robust over time versus when you have a steady zero, or where you have a steady one, or it's zero. Right? It's like you either got that job, just like you just described with the guy, or he loses the job, right? So there is a balancing act between, again, the efficiency, which is you got that one job, or the robustness, which is you have these different things that you can do, or these different kind of volatility things, and then you build your life around volatility. As a matter of fact, you actually last longer than the person who is a single-headed hydra, if you will, versus a multi-headed hydra. These are two different types of life. Okay, but you want to do both. Is what we're saying, right?
Yeah.
And
spinning plates. You got to spin plates.
There you go. I'm gonna get back to the not just the efficiency versus the robustness, but there's a particular point that I want you to react to after I do a quick recap here. Recap here is basically this. Okay, we've talked about luck, right? I said that there are 4 different types of luck. The first 2, okay, blind luck or dumb luck. And then the second one is stirring up the pot, the hustle stuff, the hustle luck, which, by the way, you kind of have to have one foot in there. You kind of have to be looking and all that kind of. The third one is having insight, right? Where you can spot luck. You've developed a certain kind of. And then the fourth one, which he says at this point is no longer really luck, okay, is you've developed yourself such that people are coming to you with opportunities, okay? And he talked about whether or not you're a very good diver and people coming to you and sharing treasure with you because you got to go down there and get the treasure for them. And being someone who has marketed themselves and is trusted within a particular area, hence people are coming to you to do deals for them. We talk about starting a business and taking on the risk and developing a reputation such that clients will give you a lot of money and you can just take a fraction of it, and there's a marketplace filled with people who would take that fraction because they haven't done the required developing of themselves and the taking of the risk, right? And then this is all tied into compounding, because we know that in order to develop this kind of luck number 4, right, which really isn't luck, it's got to be compounding. You can't just show up and people just give you the stuff. No, you said, hey, people are going to tighten up, right? The people whom they know and they trust. And that's the result of having compounded. Things having compounded. Everything compounds. Trust compounds. Money compounds. Bad luck too, and hate and bad things also compound, right? That's why, by the way, you mentioned you don't want to make certain kinds of mistakes. You want to avoid them in order so that you avoid the compounding bad side of things. And then now we're at this point where, okay, there is a volatility side of things, and then there's a steady side of things. Advantage and disadvantage to both. I want to talk about the advantage of volatility in this sense. There is something that happens to people, because we started out talking about the fact that what we're looking for here is freedom, financial freedom, meaning you want to be able to do what you want to do. And I said that there's a supply side and a demand side. The demand side just has to do with your monthly nut, what you have to spend, because you can really drop that down really low, and all of a sudden you're financially free, right? You could be like, oh, I'm going to get an RV and I'm going to live on $25,000 a year. I have this way of getting it. I'm going to, whatever it may be, passport bro, laptop lifestyle, whatever, and really just get there. Now, what tends to happen, there's a disadvantage of the steady, efficient, I got a paycheck coming in every month, in the sense that as that paycheck increases, what tends to happen with people's lifestyle? Okay. It just starts going up. It goes up, right? Here is what I suggest. It's actually what I do, okay? There's a more steady stream of income, right? Where you kind of base your life on, right? And then there's this other unsteady one, right? Where you are able to stash and you don't have your lifestyle matching up to it. You don't count on it. You don't depend on it. You use that for investments, for stash, for whatever, to build your financial freedom, right? Is what you're using this for. So my point again is this. If you just stay on that straight up salary thing, it is hard not to just keep on increasing your lifestyle with your salary, okay? Hence, you want to perhaps put your toe into the other side where things are more volatile, where you cannot depend on it, but you're seriously pursuing it. I'm not just talking about half-assing an endeavor, okay? You're seriously pursuing this kind of more volatile style of income, but because you can't depend on it, you're not increasing your lifestyle based on it, okay? And in my view, this could become, you have to have the fortitude, and you have to actually play it right, because you can get this volatile money and spend it all, right? But the point is, you don't want to do that. You don't want to spend it all. You don't want to depend on it. And what do you think about this little balancing act here? Because it's been all about balance so far. Like, what's the balance between, me staying put and compounding my benefits versus finding other new avenues? And I'm saying, look, there's a balancing act between keeping this monthly nut low, getting a stream of income which is steady, let's say it's the teaching thing or whatever it may be, and then finding seriously, not half-assedly, something else that's more volatile, but it doesn't affect your lifestyle, so that the demand side of your needs stays within a reason. And then you can use this other volatile thing for the actual wealth and all that kind of stuff. What are your thoughts on that? And then also your final thoughts on this thing.
Yeah, no, I'm with that. I think that's the way to go. That's where the smart money is. Yeah, I mean, and that's basically that hybrid model that I was discussing. You have just added the discipline component to that. Okay, that's cool, but if you spend all the money that you have coming in from these other projects, now you have to do that also, as opposed to sowing, as it were, in those things, being assertive with it, but not expecting that money to come in. And yeah, I've got I've got a show coming up, of course, tomorrow night on Thunder's Thoughts, and it'll be Dr. Doug and myself. I don't have I haven't put the finishing touches on the topic, but we'll either be talking about Transformers, or we'll be talking about, well, and actually it's not Transformers that we'll be talking about. We'll be talking about the Transformer agenda, and either that, or we're going to talk about Clarence Thomas and his role in a few really critically important decisions, and just sort of kind of talking about him, and in particular the whole schools of choice thing. I want to spend some time kind of talking on that topic, because I think that's of critical importance, and I think once the sort of the full logical conclusion of that is borne out, once all the laws and stuff have been modified, all the local laws to in the federal laws to facilitate this could be a massive plus for in particular for the Black community, because no longer would you be sort of tied to certain kinds of schools, and you'd be able to send your kid to whatever religious institution you'd like to, religious schools even. So this could be a total game changer. Really could be. So one of those two topics.
You guys should definitely tune in to that. Okay. And case closed, we've got this Sunday coming up in Dr. Thunder's channel, and that'll be at 4 p.m. Eastern time every Sunday, either on my channel or on his channel. And tentatively, unless it changes, we are going to be talking about stepdaddy stuff, and whether you or not you should bring McDonald's to all the kids, or just your kid. And leave the rest hungry. Create a whole Joseph and his brothers and all. Go ahead.
Because as was put rather saliently, why wouldn't you want to get food for the other kids? They're your sons or your kids' siblings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're the siblings. So yeah, that's
Go ahead.
Yeah, I found that breathtaking. That could actually come out of someone's mouth. That somehow he was responsible to feed all of her kids because his kid had a familial relationship with the other kids.
Yeah, it's all that heartstrings crap where they're the siblings too. How is this one supposed to feel if blah 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 blah. Now, there's always the side of what you do, and then there's the side of the arguments, right? That's a horrible argument. You might want to give all of them stuff because you don't want drama, right? Right. You might want to give them all stuff you don't want drama, but for someone like me, if you then told me that the reason I should give him stuff is because of that, then I won't give. Like, that's just my personality. Right. Just like, don't give me BS. I hate heartstrings crap. Like, don't start that. You will get punished for that. Like, I will go now. We just totally become an asshole, right? Heartstrings crap is horrible. Again, the reason why I would do it is just because I want smooth operation of whatever. I don't want so smooth operation. But don't come at me with that stupid heartstring. Anyways, so that is the tentative topic for this Sunday. Case closed, ladies and gentlemen. Again, thank you for stopping by. If you have not already, click that like button, click the subscribe button, and the notification bell. And what we talked about today, obviously, is how to get rich. So go out there and listen to this again. There were some good points in there about the types of luck that are out there, the kind that you do have agency in terms of developing the character that will bring opportunities to you. And then we talked about a lot of balance, the balancing between, finding many different types of things versus letting the, shall we say, things mature and compound. Okay. And here we are then ended up talking about this whole volatility versus steady and the disadvantages of it, and making sure that you can work on the discipline that makes it such that your monthly obligations are low, so that now you're not having to spin all these plates just to pay the bills, right? That when you're spinning the plates, you're actually able to use that money that you're getting from there in order to either get equity, which is an important part of how you talk about developing wealth, which is just another way of talking about ownership. Either you're starting your business or you're buying a piece of someone else's business and all that kind of stuff. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you all again, and everyone that super chatted, and by everyone I mean Atonement. Thank you all for showing up, and peace. We are gone without an outro.